Welcome to the fifth video in this series about the Data Analyzer Pro application, and today I'm going to tell you about some of the other options available from the settings screen and also the analysis history feature. So we'll click this and we open it directly to the blank main form. Because you may remember when I showed you the settings and options before, I had disabled the splash screen at the start, and I also turned off the welcome screen, which is where you get access to videos such as this one. The other one I turned off previously was the information message that occurred when you clicked the browse button, telling you that you were about to see a file dialog message and so on. There are four other options in the program applications that you can disable. I'm going to leave them all connected for now, and object information in terms of the analysis is a required option, remember, but everything else can be deselected if you wish to, or you can have them all selected. But for certain types of file there are limitations. If you're using runtime files, ACCDR, then references are not available to you. The way the ACCDR files are constructed, that prevents access to them, and similarly you can't look at the program code or the names of the procedures and so on. That bit's again blocked to you. Similarly, if you have a compiled file, ACCDE or MDE, then again you can't look at the procedures because the act of compiling makes that code inaccessible, and for the same reason you can't also look at design view of objects in one of these compiled files here. In order to get the default view, you have to open the form or report in design view and actually determine the default view. Well, you can't do that because you can't open it in design view, and similarly you can't get to the modules to look at them, and therefore you can't determine whether they're class or standard from this analyzer here. The other limitation that's worth actually mentioning is if you have got very large files, let's say 500 objects or more, then cross-checking every object against every other one in terms of getting the dependency information can take quite a long time. Maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes or so for a typical medium-sized database at most, but for very large databases of several thousand objects we could be talking about an hour or more. So therefore for large databases you are warned that option can take long time. You can proceed and just go off and do something while the analyzer runs, or you can choose to disable it automatically from the analyzer in process. So I'll leave all of these in place for now though, and I'm going to look at first of all a file which is a runtime file. So we click on browse, go straight to the dialog, so I turned off the previous message there, and this time blank DB, and this actually is an empty database as the name suggests, apart from the system tables. So it's got 11 system tables. There's absolutely nothing else in the database whatsoever. So it's scrolling through. I know that it's not going to find much at all, but as I mentioned earlier, because it's a runtime file, no references, no procedures or code within them, and so therefore these two buttons here are disabled, and similarly there's no reports available for those. So it's just system tables. If I untick it, you can see there's nothing else there whatsoever. But other than that, it's an absolutely standard database. Let's look at a different one. This time I'm going to look at one which is a password protected database. DB test Inc. for encrypted, and the password is XYZ. I deliberately put that in the title to remind me. Obviously you wouldn't do that in normal use. Very simple, and there's absolutely nothing different about it other than the fact that you have to enter that password at the beginning. You can't get round that password, you can't bypass password restrictions there. It works in exactly the same way. I'm just going to cancel that, although it's nearly finished. I don't actually want to look at that one. So it clears that information there, and click clear there, just bring the screen back to normal. Now I'm going to look at one final database. This is a bit bigger, and for this one then I have a lot of queries, as the name suggests there, query examples there, and it's a huge database of 38 megabytes. Now it's going to take a couple of minutes or so to run, so I'm going to cut this short and come back to it near the end. And we're getting near the end, so in another few seconds it'll be completed, and you'll see why I've bothered to check the size of the objects in a second. Okay, it's taken 1.5 minutes just about to complete there. Total object size is just under 4 megabytes, and yet the total file size is nearly 38 megabytes. And when I click on OK, we get this message: selected database may need compacting. Well, you can see why that is, because the calculated or estimated size of each object added together comes to nothing like the total size of the object. Now I can choose to ignore this, or I can choose to let it automatically compact the database for me when I close it. So I'm going to say yes to that, and I'll come back to that point later. Now, if you remember, there are 4 options here that I was going to come back to. One of them, to show the compact database message at the end, is what I've just shown you. If that was unticked, you wouldn't have seen that message. That there, I've left it in place though for now. The next 2 here, show external query message and show external relationships message, is what I'm going to show you now. So if I click on relationships, when I click on this, to see the relationships you have to open the external database, or rather show the relationships window, the diagram. Am I sure I want to do that? Well, yes I am. It's a big database, so it's taking a little bit of time, so let's open the relationships window. But oh, and if I close this, I need to close that top one there. I'm going to turn that off. And if I actually choose to go to this again, this time it will just automatically go to it. It doesn't actually need to have the message first. The other time when you're opening the external database is with the query design view, and although it's possible to look at the datasheet and possible to look at the SQL, you can't get the full query design unless you open the database there. So if I click on one of these, we've got a warning message here. Are you sure you want to do this? Well, yes I am sure, but I'm going to say no for now, because every single time I open a query I'm going to see that message, so I'm going to turn that off as well. And I don't know which one it was before, but this time it's going to open it without the message straight to there. And so if we just shrink this down a bit and now click close, ask me if I want to save. Well, because I'm in the external database, I am going to save that. Close this here, and if we reopen that, hopefully it will appear differently this time. As you can see, the splitter bar was moved down before. I could simply change the query if I wanted to do so. So I've turned off nearly all of these here. The one other one here that I haven't mentioned there, showing the code in colour, well, it's already collected the code with the colour formatting as well. So if I click on any one of these, I am going to see whatever colour formatting is in here. In this case, not much on that particular one, but you can see that the colour coding is there. If I turn this off, then next time that it actually compiles an analysis, then it will not do the colour formatting there. So at this point then, right, I've got a database of 38 megabytes, so I'm going to close the database, confirming that I want to compact it, and you'll see now that it's reduced it from 38 megabytes down to 3. Much better. Okay, that's all for today, and I will see you again for another video.